Hello there. This is Suzanne Collins. I'm with the National Federation of Independent Business in Pennsylvania. I'm the Communications Director. And welcome to our webinar on data security. NFIB is most grateful to our two sponsors of today's webinar. First, Reclamere, which are the data security experts. That small business and NFIB member is located in Tyrone, Pennsylvania. And also Hudak & Company, which offers small business accounting, and they're located in Harrisburg. Thank you to our sponsors. And Reclamere, one of our sponsors, will be presenting this webinar. I have with me on the phone here the co-owner and CEO of that business, Angie Singer-Keating. Are you there, Angie?
I sure am, Suzanne.
Well, welcome. I'm going to be letting you know throughout this if there are questions from our participants, and I'll let you know what their questions are, and maybe you can fit them in. But we want to let people know if they type in their questions and they don't get an answer right away, since we're limiting this to a half hour, we will email you, try to email you answers to your question. So now I'm going to let you take it over, and we're going to learn about how to avoid a cyber attack at your business. Angie?
Suzanne, thank you so much for having me present. This is a topic that I am incredibly passionate about as a small business owner myself, and we're very proud members of NFIB and really appreciate all the work that NFIB does for independent business. Today what I want to talk about is how to keep your business from a cyber attack. And recent events have really kind of ramped up the need for small businesses to be aware that they are definitely on the radar of the bad guys. And also state data breach notification laws, as well as recent changes in HIPAA and high tech for healthcare, as well as any business who services healthcare and handles patient information. All of these changes have kind of come together in the perfect storm, where it is now very important that small business be aware that they are a target and take appropriate steps to limit their exposure. This presentation is usually an hour, and I'm going to hit the highlights because we only have a half an hour, and business owners like myself and like you folks on the line are incredibly busy, so we wanted to make good use of your time. But you will have all of the slides, and I'm always available if you would want to email me a follow-up question. Also, please go ahead and type in your questions through the presentation. Chances are, if you're thinking it, there is someone else out there who wants an answer to the same question. So before we kind of start, I wanted to address the heartbleed bug, because that has been in the news so prominently lately and has not been added to this presentation yet. What you need to do if you are a business owner who has a website of any kind, regardless of whether you transmit data, right now is the time to contact your website developer and find out if they have updated their version of OpenSSL that they may be using on your website. If you are a website user from a personal perspective, as also from the end user perspective of your employees in the business, now is the time to make sure that your websites or that the websites that you use for online banking and those types of sensitive information transfers and interactions, that their sites have been updated. A really big word of caution right now is that a lot of shady characters are coming out of the woodwork because of all of the heartbleed panic. Do not, whatever you do, click on any email links, download any attachments regarding heartbleed. Go to the website and log into the website and change your passwords there, but never, ever, ever click on a website that is in an email, no matter how trusted you think it may be. So moving on, when we look back at 2012, 2013, and this comes from the Verizon Business Solutions Data Breach Investigations report, we can see that the types of breaches are really right now because of sophisticated cybercrime. The days where people thought that a teenager in a basement was going out and hacking into sites for fun, those days are pretty much over. The folks that we now have to be concerned about are folks that are in organized crime in places like Eastern Europe, Africa, India, Asia, these areas are great havens for cyber criminals, and they have entire operations with office buildings and staff all working for them to get into your data, try to steal it, try to encrypt it and hold it for ransom, and try to steal identities. So when we look at how breaches occur, this is a little bit misleading because actually most are a combination of hacking, malware, and social attacks. The physical attacks continue to drop, and that's a good thing. But I think that that's becoming more so because we understand how to protect the actual physical assets, but we're turning around and basically giving the bad guys the keys to the kingdom whenever we click on things or we don't appropriately patch machines.
Angie, can I ask a question? What is a physical attack? It sounds like you're being punched.
Well, it kind of is, because somebody basically would come into your organization and just steal a laptop right off of a desk, or even steal a server. So the physical attacks are where the actual physical hardware itself has been taken or somehow attacked. It can also be when a rogue person simply puts maybe a USB with malicious code into a server. That would be a physical attack, where you had to have physical access to the device to do whatever it is you wanted to do. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. These statistics are so troubling. Every year for the past 3 years, I have taught a seminar for the Pennsylvania Bar Institute on their Internet Law Day that goes through this top 10 security threats. And every single year of the top 10 threats, anywhere from 4 to 5 of them are just repeat offenders. And one of the things to understand is that 96% of attacks were not difficult. And this is so troubling because we think that all of this these rogue bad actors and nation states and all kinds of incredibly complicated attacks are what is happening, when they're actually not. They're simply attacks that play on very simple vulnerabilities that could have been avoided. 97% of incidents were avoidable with simple or intermediate controls. Now, one of the things that people have told me after going through this presentation is that, well, you scared me to death. And I always point out, on every single one of these threats, all 10 of them, I give the free or low-cost solution to protect oneself from these threats. The problem is that people, whether they don't pay attention, I think it's really that they think it can't happen to them. And as we recently saw from the small HVAC contractor that got caught up in the Target data breach, we small businesses, particularly if we do business with large businesses and if we do business with government entities, we are especially high-value targets because we are the gateway into those larger companies. The same way with healthcare. Oftentimes I hear healthcare folks say, well, our medical records are in a server that's managed by this big company, so it's the big company's responsibility. And I say, no, absolutely it is not. It is your responsibility under the law of HIPAA as amended by HITECH, and if you're a business associate, you now are subject to the same penalties, fines, and criminal action as the healthcare folks themselves. So there's a kind of a new day of thinking that it won't happen to me, or I'm too small that regulators won't bother with me. So the very first thing are infected websites. The very best thing that I tell companies right now, and I've been asked this question for years and my opinion has changed, the question is, should I allow my employees to have social media in the workplace? I used to say, sure, as long as you have reasonable controls in place, but I now say no. And the reason that I've changed my mind is because most of our employees have social media on their phones, so they have access to it. And the threats today of simply liking something or filling out those silly surveys of, oh, guess what kind of animal I am, or I'm a scarf, guess what color I am. All of those, at the very best case, are simply gathering information about you for data mining, and at their very worst can unleash malicious software in your organization. So making sure that your staff are only using social media if it is part of their job requirement. It's easy enough to block the sites with very simple hardware or software in an organization today. And training users about why this is so dangerous for your business is really, really important. I have to really warn folks that this is the year where smartphone and tablet malware really is going to and has started to take off. Never ever reply to a text where you don't know who the text came from. Don't even reply, who is this? That's a great way to have your phone number and your account hijacked. And if you're not sure, just simply pick up the phone and call the number and say, hey, did you send this to me? Make sure the devices are encrypted. Whether you're running Google Apps for Business or you invest in some type of mobile device management software, do not allow folks on your network with their mobile devices unless they are encrypted. Good news is with iPhones, if they're on iOS 7 and they have a passcode on their phone, they're encrypted. Android takes a couple more steps, but it is really not difficult. So you want to make sure that you're really enforcing rules when it comes to smartphones and tablets. Windows XP retirement, I don't often tell people to fire staff, but this is one that I am absolutely adamant about. If you have an IT person, consultant, anyone in your organization who's telling you that this is just a big hype, they're flat out wrong. You should fire them first for saying it, and you should fire them second for being so misinformed in the IT profession. This is a serious, serious issue. And while Microsoft is going to support some types of systems, such as medical and potentially financial systems, that's all happening for organizations that are paying an incredible amount of money to have that ongoing support. The rest of us, if you are running Windows XP today, you are an absolute sitting duck for an incident to happen. So get those Windows XP machines either upgraded or get them replaced, because you really are at a tenuous point right now. I would venture to say that most of you running XP right now at this point are probably infected or will be at some point within the next 30 days.
Angie, let me ask a quick question, if I may. I know some people joined us a wee bit late, so I just want to reiterate that this is Suzanne Collins from NFIB Pennsylvania, and I have with me Angie Singer-Keating from Reclamere, which is a data security firm in Tyrone, Pennsylvania, a member of NFIB. And I also want to thank you for helping sponsor this webinar, as well as Hudak & Company, which offers small business accounting and located in Harrisburg. And if anyone has a question, please type them in, and I will let Angie know you've asked a question, and if we can't get to it, then we will email you back an answer. Okay, go ahead. What is number 7? It's been great so far.
Suzanne. Thanks, Suzanne, and I'm glad to see the late folks jumping in. We will get you the presentation so that you can see all you've missed. The next thing is overconfidence in antivirus. I had a lot of people tell me, and I've heard also in conjunction with the Windows XP retirement, well, if you have good antivirus, you don't have to worry about Windows XP retirement. Well, if you have good antivirus, you don't have to worry about clicking on things. That is simply not true. Antivirus is very much like the annual flu vaccine. If you've ever known anyone who got a flu vaccine and then got the flu, you understand that there are many, many, many strains of flu, and that the virus really can only be designed to handle the ones about which we are aware, or the ones that are likely to harm the most amount of people. The antivirus manufacturers, developers, do an incredible job of trying to stay ahead of the attackers. But the problem is that antivirus can only work if it knows about a threat. So whenever there's a brand new threat, or there are machines that are unpatched, it doesn't matter how good your antivirus is, it's not going to help. we have developed such strong perimeter security in our organizations. If you have a good, strong, protected router, if you're running any type of firewall, any type of security like that, basic security, makes it really, really difficult for hackers to get into your organization from the outside. The way that they need to come in is they need to come in through your staff doing things that they shouldn't be doing, such as not patching machines, clicking on email links, downloading things from email. Once that happens, the antivirus can be largely ineffective because the user is in essence saying, hey, ignore all of that because this is okay.
Now, just quickly, we have a question. Will the slides be offered? You said they would be, and we're going to follow up with email to anybody who wanted a copy of the slides. Okay, go ahead.
Sure.
I know we have a short amount of time.
Sure. This is a big one, lost or stolen devices, and I'm going to tell those of you who work in healthcare, no matter what size your organization, and those of you who are business associates, meaning you are vendors who supply services, goods or services, to the healthcare industry and have access, exposure, transmit, store, process, any type of patient health information. Lost and stolen devices are a really great way to get a huge fine from the Office of Civil Rights, Department of Health and Human Services, who enforce the HIPAA laws. Encryption is inexcusable on mobile devices, such as laptops, smartphones, USB drives, external hard drives, and backup tapes. Get those backup tapes encrypted. Encryption is now affordable for these types of devices, and there is absolutely no excuse. When we look at the term reasonable, which is the standard against which folks are judged when it comes to litigation, when it comes to regulatory issues, it is absolutely unreasonable to expect good security in an organization without encryption. So
I have a question about encryption, if I may. For drive encryption, what's a better option, BitLocker or EFS? That's from Taylor.
Yeah. I can't really specify different products because they all have their pluses and minuses. And I will give you the consultant's answer, which is it depends. In order to choose the right encryption for your organization, it's important to do an actual analysis of the features as well as a good understanding of your end users. Failure to pick the right encryption tool will do more harm than good because your users won't use it, your users will find ways around it, and that will cause problems in your organization. So,
okay, thanks.
Yes, absolutely. Content management systems. I know that this is a very big one for small business owners. A lot of us have things like WordPress and Drupal and Joomla that allow us to update our websites without having to go back to the web developer all of the time. Most people forget that these need to be patched. In this past year in my practice, we have handled numerous breach incidents and suspected breach incidents that occurred because the attacker was able to come in through an unpatched WordPress, Joomla, or Drupal application for a website. Understand and remember that your website may not host sensitive information, but if you're hosting your own website and it is attached to a network or part of a network that does have sensitive information, then the content management system is an excellent base for the bad guys to come in and establish a beachhead and then start to poke around your network to get to the sensitive information. So it's very important that you keep those content management systems patched and understand who has them on their computers so that they can always be part of a patch management system. Poor password practices. If you have not learned since Heartbleed that you need to have new passwords, strong passwords, and you need to have different passwords for different sites, and you need to force regular password changes on your users, there's not a lot more that I can say. It is so crucial that you use good password practices and make sure that your employees are educated about good password practices. There will come a day where there will be something better than passwords, I believe. whether it's biotech or some other way. But for now, this is the best that we have, and we have to really get strict about passwords. There are great password keepers out there. I don't endorse any type of product, but I will tell you that I personally use on my Android device an application called Splash ID. It is an encrypted password keeper that also stores, for a fee, stores your encrypted passwords in a secure cloud so that you can always access them. I like that one. I know a lot of other people have other ones that they like. Checking out good tech sites for password keeper recommendations is a smart thing to do because password keeper applications can also be malware. And what great malware if you turn around and put all of your passwords into it. So you want to make sure. Yeah, you want to make sure that your password keeper has been developed by a reputable developer and is safe. Phishing and spear phishing, this is probably the #1 way that the breaches and suspected breaches that we investigated in 2013 happened. An employee clicking on an email that was sent to them, making them think that it came from someone within their own organization, taking email that went into the spam folder and pulling it back out because they thought it was legitimate. All of these things occur, and basically by clicking on that link or that attachment, what happens is you've then let the bad guys in. So you really, really need to train your staff on making sure that they never click on things in websites. Also, in your environment, try to get away from sending attachments to one another. Having a shared drive with folders on your server is an excellent way to keep people from emailing things around an organization. Can also tell you from an e-discovery perspective, if you're ever in litigation and you have all of these different versions of documents on PCs and laptops and mobile devices, as well as the one that's supposed to be the original on the server, it is a nightmare that just drives up costs of litigation. So getting a good document management and control system in place is really crucial. Also, really being careful today about the shortened URLs. These are the little bit.ly URLs that have just a few wacky characters. You can go to bit.ly and you can reverse a small shortened URL and turn it back into what it is, what its long URL is if you're curious. So don't click on it, just copy and paste it, go to bit.ly, reverse it, and see what it is. Unpatched machines. The reason that exploits like phishing, spear phishing, content management exploits, all of these exploits are allowed to happen because unpatched machines allow the vulnerability to be executed. So it is absolutely crucial that you keep your systems patched, not only your laptops and your desktops and your servers, but also your mobile devices. I look at people's phones and they have they're 2 and 3 operating systems behind in iOS or Android, and that is very bad. The vast majority of updates that come out on mobile devices are not to make things pretty. They are to patch security flaws. So it is absolutely crucial that you keep that updated. Also, remember all of the third-party apps. One of the areas, it's one of the biggest areas of exploit are machines that are running out-of-date versions of Java. That is a really big one, as well as Adobe. So making sure that Adobe Reader and Java are updated. A lot of organizations also have taken the tact of saying, we're just simply not going to allow Java in our environment because it is so dangerous. That's a decision that every organization has to make. Most websites that are running Java or use anything using Java at this point, it's becoming an obsolete programming language, and the need for it is going away. So you have to decide in your organization whether or not Java is worth the risk. Making sure that these patches happen is absolutely crucial. And if you have a system administrator who tells you that it's not important to install updates in a timely manner, I would seriously consider a new IT person. Now is the time also to take a look at something called managed services. Managed services for IT can do many, many, many of the things that your IT consultant or your IT person is doing, freeing that consultant or that IT person up to be in your organization in a capacity that's generating revenue instead of pure play overhead, as well as allowing your security to be updated and managed by professionals who are experts and understand and take responsibility for keeping your machines updated, patched, and secure. Finally, data hostage taking. This is something that folks know as crypto locker, ransomware. What will happen, there are two types. One is what hits you personally. The other is what happens when it hits your company. Oftentimes, there'll be a message that pops up that says it's a warning from the FBI or the Department of Homeland Security and that you have illegal material or illegal activity on the machine and that you should pay a certain amount of money to kind of make this go away. The other one is where your critical data in your organization becomes encrypted, and the cyber criminals will then contact you and let you know that they have your data, and for a certain amount of money that you pay them through a site like Bitcoin, they will be happy to give you the keys. The only real savior, if you've been hit with crypto locker, is that you have good backups. I've had two kinds of clients who have good backups and clients who don't. And when crypto locker hits them, when they're caught in a ransomware attack, the ones with good backup are able to say, yeah, this is going to stink for a little while. We're going to have to rebuild some systems, but we've got our data and we'll be back up and running. The ones who don't have really two options. Pay the money, pay the ransom, and hope that you get your keys, which all of the experts recommend against, except that those of us in the trenches of small business know that sometimes we can't always work under best practices and theoretical, the theoretical world. Sometimes the reality is we have to get our data back. So working with good IT security experts will help you understand where your risks are. The way that the data is taken hostage is through all of the exploits that we have just discussed. The way that they get into your system, instead of getting into your system and taking things or getting into your system and logging your keystrokes, they come into your systems and encrypt all of your data and hold it hostage. So here are some honorable mentions. Next year, we're going to see enforcement of the HIPAA Final Omnibus Rule on businesses that handle healthcare information who are not healthcare providers. We're going to be seeing more and more issues around the cloud. I talk to people who are adamant that they will never be in the cloud because they want to hug their servers, and I talk to other people who think the cloud is the greatest thing since sliced bread. My response is cloud is just geography. It's where your data is. And for many of us in small business, the hard reality is that we cannot afford security experts to guard our data. And when we look at Tier 1 cloud providers who have PhDs from MIT and Stanford and Harvard and some of the best universities in the world on their staff protecting cloud data, many times for small and mid-sized business, the cloud is absolutely the best place for their data to live. Insider threats will continue to be a problem with people stealing client information from their employers, and we will also start to see more issues and more fallout because of the Edward Snowden incident, where our privacy and our civil liberties with government and big data are really starting to be questioned and cause all of us to kind of sit up and ask more questions. So if you're a small organization, where should you focus? The biggest thing you want to have is you want to implement firewalls. Hopefully all of you have that. You want to make sure that you implement access control on remote access services. So if your employees can log in from home to see their email, if they can come in through a VPN, you definitely want to make sure that VPN has been patched because of Heartbleed. Changing default credentials on all internet-facing devices. So many times people get new hardware, and even their IT hardware vendor implements the hardware with the default credentials that came from the factory. Those are readily available all over the internet that you can buy. Finally, trust but verify. If you have a bookkeeper in your business and you have an accountant, you already understand trust but verify. Data is the currency of the 21st century. If you have an IT person but you don't have a security consultant that you can rely on for that verification, that's the same as having a bookkeeper and no accountant. In large organizations, really understanding where your data is. So many times we find data breaches of legacy data, old data, expired credit card data. Well, guess what? Expired credit card data still constitutes a data breach under your PCI payment card agreement. Monitoring logs, annually reviewing your incident response plans. Again, trust but verify. Most large organizations are doing internal testing, internal scanning on a very regular basis, but if you're not getting that outside look, you may not be getting the full picture. So it's very important that you understand also that penetration testing is not a risk assessment. Penetration testing of trying to get into your network is only one point of about 70 different points of exposure that you should be tested and have assessed for risk when it comes to your IT environment. So at this point, I would like to thank the NFIB for hosting this. And if you would like to contact them about membership, and if you're not a member, I seriously urge you to consider membership. It's a great organization for all of us. Their phone number is at the bottom, and you can contact them for more information. So I'll turn it back over to Suzanne at this point.
Angie, that was a wonderful presentation, and even I, who don't grasp all of that detail, really did understand quite a bit of what you were saying. But if people have further questions, they should feel free to call me at that number that you see on your screen, 717-232-8582, extension 1, or you can email me at Suzanne, S-U-Z-A-N-N-E, .Stoltenberg, S-T-O-L-T-E-N-B-E-R-G, at nfib.org. I also want to just thank you for offering all this information. I'm sure people will want some follow-up. If we get any emails, Angie's more than happy to help and follow up. And you may also call Reclamere if you want to inquire further or get some services from them. And the number is 814-684-5505, and you see Angie is extension 303. Lastly, I wanted to let you know that NFIB is having a small business day at the Capitol here in Harrisburg on June 10th. We can set up an appointment with you and your elected representatives. We have a lovely lunch and great speakers, and we hope you consider coming, and you can call us again at the number we gave you. But thank you all so much. We're going to be having more webinars, and we'll be putting the word out about it, and hope you join us again. Angie, thank you. Thank you all who attended, and we wish you well over spring. Bye-bye.